Okay, real talk. Even though I wanted to move on to the last branch of government, it has come to my attention that there is something even more pressing that we need to talk about. Because apparently some people don't know that there are different levels of government and that they have different responsibilities. And every time we mix them up, a social studies teacher dies. So first we have the federal government, the government of Canada. Remember these lines? That's Canada. That is the border for our sovereign nation. And remember that the head of the government of Canada is the Prime Minister. And their government is responsible for many things, but I want to quickly mention something that applies to all Canadians, and that is called the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is a very precious document that protects the rights of Canadians, making sure that we're allowed to love who we love, have the faith that we believe in, and more. And all levels of government have to respect this charter. One important thing that the federal government controls is airports. Not only do they own the land and lease it out, but they also set policies and regulations. So you really want a federal government that, knows what it's doing. They also own Canada Post, which is a crown corporation, meaning that it's a private company with some public policy objectives. And those are important because sometimes private companies aren't incentivized to serve all Canadians. For example, if you live in a rural area in Canada, a lot of fully private companies won't deliver mail to you because it's not worth it for them. The federal government also controls the fisheries in Canada through the Fisheries Act because even though we want to eat fish, we have to protect ecosystems, and Canada is responsible for Canadian waters. They're also responsible for regulating and supervising the broadcasting industry. This is a very important topic in general, but especially right now, so it may or may not be getting its own video soon. Now, one of the most important jobs of the federal government is international relations, and that includes promoting trade and building relationships with other countries by leading international development and humanitarian efforts. Now, it's a hard job because the world is a big place, and unfortunately, we can't control what's happening outside of Canada. So it is crucial that the people in the federal government know how to stay cool, calm, and collected during a crisis, and also know how to build and foster mutual respect with other nations. And of course, and hopefully to no one's surprise, the Canadian military falls under the responsibilities of the federal government. Moving on to the next level, we have the provincial government, and Canada has 10 different provinces signified by different colors here. Now, I know what you're thinking. There are more than 10 different areas on this map, and you're right. This map includes, of course, our 3 territories at the top, which are not provinces, they are different, but we don't have time to get into why in this video. But stick with me. A provincial government is led by a premier, and they're in charge of all the things that people blame on the federal government. Housing, healthcare, and education are the responsibility of the provinces. Did you know that? No, you didn't. Don't lie. Now, to be fair, the federal government does have a hand in housing because they offer tax benefits and they do influence monetary policy, but more than likely, if you're upset with the affordability of housing, it's a provincial issue. And if you're upset about cuts to education and cuts to healthcare, you probably hate this person. And that's why it's very important to make sure that the premier is somebody who cares a lot about these things and knows how to use tax dollars effectively to support them. Because if they aren't someone who cares about those things, like, say, they're a former lobbyist, then it can be very bad. People whose loyalties lie with private interests don't make very good public servants. Now, a couple other things that fall under the responsibilities of the provincial government are justice, and highways, crucial, and social services, which very much deserves its own video. And the last level is the municipal government, and each of the cities in Canada has one. Now, this map only shows the capitals of provinces and territories, as well as the capital of Canada, which, as we all know, is... If you don't know what the capital of Canada is, look it up right now. Municipal governments are led by mayors. Here's the mayor of Vancouver. Now, their job is a little bit different than all of the other mayors across Canada because on the rare occasion that they're in the office and not using taxpayer dollars to fly around the world and kiss the rings of tech bros, they are working out in the gym that they used their co-workers' meeting space to make. And they spend the rest of the time telling the poors not to bully their billionaire buddy. Oh, and distracting the public from the fact that they campaigned on the promise of hiring 100 new police officers and 100 new mental health professionals to help tackle the addictions crisis in Vancouver. I'll let you guess which part of that promise they haven't fulfilled. But most mayors and municipal governments do lots of things that we might consider boring but are really important for everyday life, like maintenance of parks and public transportation and road maintenance and waste management and firefighters and policemen and utilities, making sure that water actually gets to your house, pipe things. and parking. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list, but hopefully you're starting to get a good sense of the different levels of government and what they're responsible for and why these roles in public service, mayor, premier, and prime minister, might require a different skill set. Now, here's the confusing part. Remember the parties that we talked about? Well, not all of those parties are the same at each level of government. For example, a provincial party might refer to themselves as liberal while having very different values and policies from the federal Liberal Party. And many terms can be confusing too. For example, for a lot of people who support human rights, they use ABC to mean anything but conservative. But if you're talking about the city of Vancouver, there is a party called the ABC Party, which some people think means a big conservative party. There are some other guesses as well. Who's to say? So anytime there's an election, you need to know which level of government we're talking about and what that government is responsible for and which parties are running. And since we have a federal election coming up, I have a moral obligation to remind you to head to elections.ca and make sure that you are registered to vote. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA. Yeah, fun to stay at the